Hello and welcome to the Healing Insight podcast, episode 56, with me, Sarah Hunt.
And me, Jez Hunt.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
How are you? I'm very well. Okay. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, um, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I thought I'd let you introduce the topic today because it was something that you mentioned to me that you thought might be interesting for us to explore. So, over to you for the introduction today.
Okay. Today's episode is about, we are going to discuss cause and effect.
We are.
We are. So, in my understanding, and sort of certainly from my NLP training, my neuro linguistic programming training, the concept of cause and effect, it sort of refers to the idea that our thoughts, our beliefs and perceptions have a direct impact on our actions and the outcomes we therefore get. Because our outcomes are based on our actions, but it's our thoughts and our beliefs, our values that have an impact on those actions that we take, and therefore the behavior which then leads to the outcomes that we get. So that's kind of the essence of it. So I'd like to explore it a bit more because I think there's a lot we can talk about it.
I think there probably is, yeah. A lot we can talk about. Um, yeah, because certainly as I've been on my spiritual journey, what I was taught is what you put out, you get back. So, and that's kind of cause and effect as well, because it's to do with energy. But I kind of remember at school, not for us so much at school, but when my children were at school, it was all about consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of cause and effect as well, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you behave in this way, there's consequences, and it was big on consequences when Gareth and Alice were at school. So that's kind of cause and effect as well. Um, and the way that we interact with others can create an effect, can't it? So if we react, we might get one scenario happening, whereas if we have taken a step back and respond, we'll get a different scenario happening.
Yeah.
So we've put out one lot of energy when we've reacted, but put out a different lot of energy when we've responded. And therefore, the effect of those two situations, those two scenarios, brings back to us different situations because the energy of each of them has been different. The way we've behaved has been different. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. The key to this for me is the understanding that we are always the cause. So, okay. So, for example, if someone has a go at you, we've talked about this before, but if somebody has a go at you or it starts criticizing you or getting aggressive towards you or whatever in an argument or whatever, then the outcome that we experience will be based on the thoughts, the beliefs that we hold in that moment that will then have a direct impact on the actions that we take. So we might react to that, but that reaction to that situation is still creating an outcome. We might take a step back and respond to that, but that response to that situation will also create an outcome. So depending how we respond or react to it, we can change the outcome that we are going to have. Doesn't necessarily mean we can change it to exactly what we want in that moment, but we
Mm.
will have an impact on that outcome. Because if we react and go rah, 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 and dive into a full scale argument, that will have a different reaction, a different outcome than if we take that step back and try and diffuse the argument and get to the crux of whatever the issue was in the first place that the other person was trying to create into an argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the trouble is that we as humans are very good in this human experience, are very good at blaming things externally. So I've had a bad day because this happened to me. Well, no,
Mm.
you've had a bad day because you chose the way you responded to whatever that situation was, whatever that event was, that you have now associated with creating a bad day for you. So someone who goes to work, they're running a bit late, maybe they get stuck in traffic, somebody cuts them up, they get a bit irate and agitated, they get to work, they're not effective because their mind's on how crap their morning's been because of that bad experience of driving to work in heavy traffic, people cutting up, blah, blah, blah. But that's only
But if they
because,
hadn't been late in the first place,
well, the there's lots of elements to unpack here if we want to. But the point is that the reason they believe it to be a bad experience is because they've turned it into a bad experience, because any experience is neither good nor bad. It's just an experience.
yeah,
It's what we attach to that experience that makes it a good, in air quotes, or bad experience.
yes, and any experience always gives us an opportunity for growth. It
Yes,
always gives us an opportunity for
it's
learning.
a learning. Yeah.
It's a learning. It's a learning, and yeah, you're right. There's quite a lot we could unpack from that. But it is recognizing what we can do to change, and that we have choices, like you said, with that situation. That person had a choice, and if they hadn't been late, they wouldn't have been wound up. They probably wouldn't have drawn in the same scenarios because they wouldn't have been in the stress state of, oh God, I'm going to be late to work, and now I've got lots of traffic and la la la. Whereas if they'd been on time, gone out with a calm, what's the word I want? It's just gone from me,
Demeanor.
my head. Demeanor, that will do. They probably would have had a journey to work that wasn't stressful. They'd have got there, they'd been focused, they'd have been productive, whole different scenario. But we're very good at blaming what's going on outside of us for the state that we're in, when actually the state that we're in is a choice,
Yes.
isn't it? And it may be that the state that we're in, there may be things that have happened that we've reacted to. And I can think of things recently where there was a lot going on, and I chose to get myself a bit wound up about things. Um, and it took me a while to kind of take a step back and look at it and realise that it was just a learning experience. It was all okay, and we could sort it out and what have you. But it's recognizing that it's coming from you. You do have a choice, and yeah, there are situations that will trigger things in you, and
Yeah.
that's probably more what it is. It's triggering stuff in you, and then you react instead of responding to it. And we've talked about that a lot in the past, but it's that then creates an effect. But as you said, you are the cause. It's
Yeah.
understanding that you are the cause of the situation. You have to come back and look at yourself and go, okay, what is actually going on here? Yeah, if I'd got up a bit earlier, hadn't messed around on the computer before I went out, I'd have been on time. I'd have had plenty of time to get to work and get parked. I'd have gone in a happy mood, and everything would have gone swimmingly. But it's easier, isn't it, to blame everybody else instead of actually looking at yourself and going, so why did I choose to be like that? Why did I choose to react in that way? Why did I why did I have the experience like I had it? What is it that's actually created this situation? Where's it coming from in me? Because it's coming from me.
Yeah.
Um,
The great thing about this is that this awareness. So when you understand that our thoughts and beliefs and perceptions have a direct impact on our outcomes, on our behavior, so therefore our outcomes, then when we understand that our thoughts and beliefs impact our actions and outcomes, we can take control of our lives by changing our thoughts and beliefs.
mm,
So if we know that we have a limiting belief that's holding us back, and we then change that limiting belief, which changes the negative thought patterns we have about that particular event we're worried about, or we believe whatever it is about, then we can shift our response or reaction to that scenario, which then changes the, so we're changing the cause, we're changing ourselves, we're changing our way of responding or reacting to that scenario, which then has an effect on the outcome that we have. So we can control the outcomes we get when we start to understand the things that are influencing the outcomes we're having now.
mm,
Because if we're having an outcome that's undesired, then there is something in our thoughts, our beliefs, our experiences are that we're filtering stuff through, and which then makes so the choices we make are based on, which then leads to the outcome that we're having. So if we're getting an undesired outcome, then it's because we have an undesired belief, or a belief or something that's not serving us any longer, or not serving us in that moment, in that situation.
mhm,
So if we can change the belief, then when we come up with those situations again, we will react or respond differently, which
mhm,
means then the outcome is more likely to be one of a desirable one, assuming we're getting rid of limiting beliefs, things that are holding us back, no longer serving us now, rather than changing positive beliefs that might be serving us.
mm.
I love these philosophical discussions because you just look deep in thought.
I have to process it when you get really philosophical.
Well, it's
um,
it's
but go on.
um, so for example, if we believe we're capable and confident, then we're more likely to take action to do something, whatever that thing is. But if we're not confident, so if I'm confident but I have a fear of heights, but I'm confident in my abilities, then me to go rock climbing, albeit indoor rock climbing, safe environment, you pretty much can't go wrong there because you're harnessed in and you're on pulleys and everything. It's quite safe. But if I've got a fear of heights, but I'm confident, then I am more likely to do that thing. I'm going to give it a go because I want to overcome my fear of heights. Okay. But if I'm not confident in myself, if my beliefs are such that, well, I mean, I've got fear of heights, and actually going up high is not a good way of clearing my fear of heights. So then I'm going to talk myself out of doing that. So the outcome
Mm,
I get is opposite, it's completely different because my beliefs about myself are different. And that's the only difference in this example. That's the only difference that I'm using as the example, is how I believe myself in myself affects what I choose to do. So it affects my behavior, which leads to a different outcome.
mm,
But that doesn't mean, regardless of what I believe about myself, it's just as safe for me to go up and down that rock face on a harness, on a pulley system, regardless of what I believe about myself. It's not going to, just because I believe that I can do it, isn't going to make it safer. Just because I don't believe it, I can do it, and I'm fearful of heights, doesn't make it unsafe. But it's changed my behavior because that's how I believe, or my belief in that moment about myself which I am then projecting onto that situation. So I'm using that belief as a filter to change my behavior. So the decisions I make, which lead to the behavior I take, which lead to the actions I take, which leads to the outcome that I get. I shall park that one there with you.
Can you just repeat that? That
Okay.
that last bit. Come into the actions you take. So the
So it's
beliefs,
the
was it?
beliefs that I have
Yeah,
lead to the thoughts that I apply. So the thoughts that I have,
yeah,
the thoughts that I have lead to the actions that I'm going to take, or the decisions I make, sorry,
yeah,
or the choices I make,
yeah.
which lead to the actions I take, which dictates the behavior, which leads to the outcome that I get. And you can always listen back to the recording afterwards if you want to.
I usually do, but um, yeah. Do you know, I've never really broken it down to that degree before, and that's why I asked you to repeat it because it's like, gosh, yes. Suddenly, there's a few things going click, 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 click for me, where where I've always known that you know I'm the cause of what happens outside of me, but it's kind of just broken it down into how it becomes how the outcome you get, the process that happens to get to that outcome. That makes sense.
Yeah. The the only thing we really need to understand if we want to change something is change comes from thought.
Change
We
comes from within.
we have to change the way, if we want to change an outcome, we have to change the way we think. So what makes us think the way we do? Well, it's our values, our beliefs, our experiences. It's what we have, or how we have created our map of the world, how we interpret the world around us. So we have these beliefs that we've adopted to keep us in survive, to survive through life, and they're helping us, they're protecting us, they're serving us when we adopt them, which means that they will dictate the behavior we take, so the actions that we do. Well, if I want to grow my business, but I take no action towards it, I don't do any marketing, I don't talk to anyone, and then me sitting there expecting people to ring my doorbell or phone my phone and say, "Hey, Jez, will you coach me?" Then that's not going to work. But if I take action and market myself and talk to people and get referrals and encourage people to have good results with clients, then those actions will result in a different outcome. So I've gone from no business to a business. But
Mm.
I have to take those actions. Well, then the question would be, what was stopping me from taking those actions? So what are my beliefs about myself? What are my thoughts around marketing? What are my beliefs around clients? Have I clear who my ideal client is? Whatever it needs to be, then what is my belief system around growing my business that led to me not wanting to do marketing to grow my business? So I have to change something in that process. Well, all of those underlying things basically lead to thought.
Mm.
Any action we take, any behavior we do, any choice we make, any decision we make, all starts with thought. So even if it's subconscious, so me picking up this pen that I'm just demonstrating, so just visualize me holding a pen, listeners. Me picking up that pen started with a thought of, I'm going to pick up that pen. It may not have been
Yeah.
completely conscious, but there must have been a root of, I'm going to write something, or I'm going to use this pen to demonstrate a point, so I need to pick that pen up. It starts with thought. I don't just randomly, sporadically grab a pen and hold it up in the air.
Yeah, there's the thought that's come.
There's a thought that
Mm.
comes from that. So to change our outcomes, the root of it is to change our thinking, is to change our thought processes. So it's looking at what dictates our thought processes, or what influences possibly our thought processes, because they're the areas looking at what we can control. What if we can identify why we think like we do, then that will help us understand why we respond or react like we do, why we behave like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we understand that, then by changing the way we think about something, we'll change the behavior, which will change the outcome.
Yeah. And our thoughts come from our beliefs, don't they? So,
Well,
or a lot of them
yeah,
do.
they're filtered through our beliefs.
They're filtered through our beliefs. So, so if we want to change the outcome, then we need to be looking at where's that thought come from? Why did I have that thought? What led to that decision? And then kind of coming back to our beliefs and our values, and looking at whether they are still serving us.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you want to do something, or the outcome's not as you undesirable, we'll use that word again. If the outcome is undesirable, then why? Why is it undesirable? Is the first question to ask. What is it about the outcome that you don't like? And then, okay, so what led me to make the decision? Because the decision I made led to the actions, led to my behavior.
Mm.
And we know that behavior leads to the behavior, and the actions that we take lead to the outcome that we get. So the decision I made, so what was that decision based on? Well, the decision is based on our values, our beliefs, and our experiences, and the knowledge that we have in that moment to make a decision. So it's got to be something there. If the outcome's not as you want, it's got to be something within that, the way we, our internal representation of how we interact with the world, our view of the world, our map of the world, to use an NLP expression, that dictates the way we behave. So that will influence the thoughts that we have when we're going to make a decision.
Yeah, and our view of the world comes from all of our experiences, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And our own journey, and that's why different people. Hello, Charlie.
Charlie's joining in as well today.
No, you're not going outside down there. There must be a cat down the garden that he can hear. Now I've lost my train of thought.
So everything comes, our map of the world comes from our experiences and our values and our beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah, and my journey is different to your journey. Therefore, my perception of everything is going to be different to yours, and the way that I deal with something might be very different to the way that you deal with something, because my journey's been different to yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the outcome that I get from a certain situation, if you were in a similar situation, you can't ever say that anyone's in the same situation, because nobody has exactly the same experience, because we're all different. We've all had different experiences leading up to that. But if you were in a similar situation, you might deal with it very differently to the way that I dealt with
Yeah.
my situation.
And the outcome I have could be completely different. You might
Completely
look at
different.
you might look at the outcome
Yeah.
I have and say, well, how did you have such a good outcome when I got a rubbish outcome?
Yeah. Yeah,
Or vice versa.
absolutely. And that then comes back to needing to look at yourself to see where that is coming from, as to why you ended up with that outcome. And it's coming back through the decisions you made. Why did I make that decision or that choice? Where's that come from? What thoughts did I have? What beliefs have I got? What values have I got? Is it linked into that? Or is there something else going on that I need to be addressing that's affecting the way that I've dealt with that situation, or I've reacted to it instead of responding to it? Or yeah, and it's just learning, isn't it, to recognise that whatever's going on outside of you is a reflection of what's going on within you.
Yeah, because what's
And so
going
we
on
need
out.
to be going back in within ourselves to address what's going on there, to be able to deal with what's going on outside of ourselves properly and to change the outcome.
Yeah, because what's going on outside of us is our interpretation of the actions that other people are taking. And we're interpreting what they're doing and how they're behaving based on how we perceive that the world should be in our version of the world.
Mm.
Interestingly, a lot of this, as you've possibly noticed, in fact, I'm surprised you haven't said anything, a lot of this can be head based because we're trying to work out what our behaviors are and what our beliefs are.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't, so our values and our beliefs are connected to our unconscious mind. So we don't think, oh, this is my value, so this conflicts with my value, so therefore I'm not going to do this. It's subconscious level. By tuning into our higher self, by tuning into our intuition to a degree, we can bypass some of this. So when you feel something is right, it may still lead to an undesirable outcome. But more
but that
often
might
than
be for your
not,
highest good.
it's for your highest good anyway. So the undesirable outcome could be a desirable outcome in that you didn't get what you expected, but you got the learning that would help you move forwards from where you are now. So, yes, by all means, journal on stuff, try and make sense of it because it will help you get a better understanding of why you're experiencing the things that you're experiencing.
Mm.
But it also gives those an indication of those things that we need to look at or could look at. We don't have to, we have a choice that we could look at that maybe could be changed. So if it is a belief, a limiting belief or something that is no longer serving us, we could look at changing that belief, which will then change the decision making process. So the thoughts we have, the decision making process that we have, which will lead to different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a good indicator of things that we need to heal. And whether that's
Yeah,
healing through coaching and journaling and breathing, or whether it's through energy healing, or whether it's through just actually, I'm talking a load of rubbish, but I believe in that and I'm just going to change my belief and go and live whatever, then it doesn't matter. The point is it highlights the things that we need to look at or that we
mm-hmm.
can look at. We don't have to. But the things that we can look at that are going to help us move forwards and be a better person, a better version of me.
Yeah, yeah. And then that allows us to reach our potential, doesn't it? It helps us to reach our potential in that moment, in each moment when we're willing to address this, because address any issues that are flagged up to us. Because at the end of the day, we are on a journey. I certainly believe everybody's on a journey, and some people are consciously on that journey, and so they're very aware of things, and other people are on that journey but not consciously aware that they're on a journey of self-discovery and growth and um, being the best version of themselves that they possibly can be in that moment. That doesn't mean that they're not growing, because a lot of people are growing because they subconsciously do what they need to do to change things. Um, but when you're on a more conscious journey of self-discovery and self-growth, then you're more likely to take bigger steps forward
Yeah.
than perhaps you would if you aren't fully aware that that's actually what's going on.
Well, not necessarily bigger steps, but steps that are more aligned with moving you to where you want to go. So
Yeah, that's
it
probably a better way of putting it,
it,
actually.
it
Yeah.
it's like the difference of so yeah, it's like the difference. I think we've used the map one before, but let's say I want to go to Edinburgh, then I could do it without a map. I could get to Edinburgh without a map. I know I need to head north from where I am, so I would just start heading north. And yeah, I might bounce around a bit and go to places I didn't necessarily need to go to, but I could still end up in Edinburgh. But if I
Mm.
use a sat nav or a map and actually plan my route and work out the most effective route to get there, then I'm just following a route and avoiding some of the things I don't need to experience because I've already got the learning.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. It just means that it might be a harder and longer journey than it needs to be. But then is it because if you haven't learnt the learnings, then maybe you need to experience those experiences to get the learnings to then move you forwards? So it's, I think we're all moving forwards to a degree.
Yeah.
We're all on our journey. It's just whether we're aware of it and can therefore change the decisions that we make to then change the experiences that we have, the outcomes that we have, or whether we're oblivious to it. So we're just making decisions based on our beliefs and our values and our thought processes, which leads to the behavior we have, which might lead to less desirable outcomes than we would like, or more undesirable outcomes than we would like. Whereas
Mm.
someone who's possibly more aware, if you're aware that your beliefs and the things that your internal representation of the world is dictating what you're doing or
Mm.
influencing what you're doing, and you're aware of that, then you're more likely to be able to focus on what you need to change that before you get to that point of needing to make a decision about the outcome that you want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know about it, then how can you change it?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I think this is
Yeah.
going to be another long week of you pondering after this episode, I feel.
Yeah. I think there will be a lot of reflection. Yeah. It's an interesting topic when you start to kind of drill down a bit more rather than just looking at what you put out, you get back, but understanding where what you're putting out and how you're reacting to situations or responding to them creates the outcome
Yeah.
that actually happens. And I think it's, yeah, interesting. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, just well, really. Like you say, I think that's certainly for me, it has given me a lot to reflect on, kind of understand it in a greater depth than perhaps I have done before,
Good.
which is all
Well,
good.
likewise, I always get learning. So when I'm explaining something or because I'm feeling what I need to say, so I'm going to my intuition.
Mm,
And there's stuff that comes out of my mouth that I think, well, that was quite profound. I quite like that, Jez. Yeah, well done. No, but in the sense of it, it helps me. I think I mentioned this a few podcasts ago. I talk out loud sometimes
yeah.
because it just helps me to process stuff, make sense of stuff. So us doing these podcasts is just as much of a learning experience for me, not only from your perspective of things, because you have your map of the world, I have mine, and let's work out what the differences are and let's discuss them because that's what makes it fun. But it's also helping me understand more about a topic. And actually, I did believe that, but I don't believe that anymore, or whatever it might be, because it's changing
Mm,
my understanding, my knowledge. So, therefore, my map of the world. So, it's changing my behavior and therefore the outcomes that I have. So, it's all a learning. It's all good.
it's all learning. It's all good. Absolutely. Wow. Wow. Just well, really. Just well. I think we'll leave the listeners to contemplate and to reflect.
Indeed.
And hopefully it will give them some insight. So thank you to everyone for listening to us. Thank you, Jenny, for your time. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.